The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
You're now about to witness
the truth. It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Obviously, I'm not Ben. I'm Anoa Changa for any of our first-time viewers out there. Tuesday nights, I'm taking over. Yay! Ben is taking his time. You know, he's letting me hang with you guys on Tuesday nights, and then we'll have Niz on Thursday nights, and Ben will be here Monday and Wednesday for the next several weeks as we work on building out more of the Progressive Army platform. Also want to give a special shout out to members of the Progressive Army. We have a excellent squad of writers, thinkers, researchers. Check out progressivearmy.com. Tons of great news, op-eds, all types of stuff going on over there. Also want to give a shout out to because, you know, I mean, I've stepped in for Ben before, but this is still kind of a little different since this is just like my show, not just filling in. Want to give a shout out to our production team, our behind the scene researchers, everyone who makes it possible for Ben to do what he does and for me to come on, for Niz to come on. So thank you guys very much. You know, our moderators in the chat room. So we're in for an interesting night. Tonight is another primary night. We have Arizona, then we have the Utah. Arizona's a primary. The polls should be closing, I believe, around 10 Eastern time, if I'm doing my math correctly. And then also we have Utah and Idaho caucuses. And those results, I believe, should start coming in. I think the Idaho caucus results should start coming in soon. So we'll kind of have some primary stuff, but we're gonna wait till that starts coming in. So I'll kind of be jumping around a little bit with that stuff, just kind of giving everyone a heads up. I'm pretty sure, you know, by now we're all pretty much aware of what's going on the day by day. I mean, that's one of the great things about social media. On primary days, when we actually have primaries happening, we're kind of aware of, like, are there long lines? You know, are there issues at the polls? And apparently I'm seeing reports from different places that people who were independents who registered as Democrats to be able to vote are being told they're not actually registered properly. So they're being either told they can't vote or they're being given provisional ballots or some scenario combination or whatever. I've also seen that I just saw a post. I haven't been able to find an article to actually confirm this, but I saw a post that said some polls were actually closing early. So I know that one of my guests tonight is my co-admin from Black Burner Coalition and African Americans for Bernie, Yamina, and she is actually on the ground in Arizona, so she's going to try and check in with us a little later tonight to kind of give us kind of an on-the-ground, you know, feel from Phoenix, from a Phoenix watch party. So that'd be pretty cool. But one of the things she was telling me is that there is a team of lawyers working in Phoenix right now on a lot of these issues at the Phoenix campaign headquarters, because there have been multiple reports coming in from all over the state all day long about whether it's the ballot issue, about people not being registered properly, allegedly, and being forced to use provisional ballots, or other hosts of issues, people not being on the rolls, people not at the right precinct, all types of stuff have been going on all day. There are very long lines. It's going to be interesting. There's a high turnout for early voting as well, so it'll be really cool to see how, you know, this all plays out, right? Because here we are, we're a week after, you know, the last round of states. There's been more ramped up activity in a lot of places. You know, as we're looking forward going towards our April and May caucuses and primaries, people are really, Grassroots is really stepping up and really bringing their air game. You know, I mean, California apparently is like feeling the burn, like for real. So it's going to be definitely pretty wild to keep watching and seeing what's going on, and that's kind of what we're going to talk with you tonight. I'm going to be joined around 9:30 by Necie Mosley, who is from a Grassroots Bernie supporter and also former staffer, South Carolina staffer from North Charleston, South Carolina, and then also Stacey Hopkins, local Grassroots organizer from here in Atlanta. And we're going to talk about kind of, what Grassroots can do as we're talking about moving the campaign forward. We keep saying, okay, Bernie has a path forward. This is possible. We can do this. But what does that actually look like besides saying, okay, we need people to phone bank. We can do this. This is possible. What does that look like besides sharing, information on social media? So looking forward to having Necie come on and talk with us a little bit more about kind of, the differences, the different sides of things, and like kind of just some from her own experience, what she would think were like good tips and ways of going about doing things. And then also Stacey will come in and we're going to talk a little bit about how to do, how to talk about movement building a little bit, but also getting involved local action. One of the great things that Bernie has been, talking about has been, when millions of people rise up, we can change the system. And some may say that's idealistic or that's impossible, but people have come together and created sustainable, meaningful change before, and so we already have models, we already have examples for how it has happened. But a lot of that, actual, the action steps that you take to begin to become involved, that you take to begin to actually create, change, and whether it's you're talking looking at your schools, whether it's a local issue in terms of environmental stuff such as water issues. One of the things Stacey and I have talked about is there's a coal ash, issue here in Georgia. Coal ash is a problem actually in several places such as West Virginia and North Carolina, for example. There was a big coal ash spill, I think it was 2 years now, with Duke Energy in North Carolina. So there's a lot of different things that while they tie into national politics to some extent, all politics is local, as the saying goes. And so I'm really excited to have Necie and Stacey, impart some wisdom on all of us. And we'll be taking calls starting at 10, just to give us a little time to have conversation and stuff to begin to, to kind of begin with, and then we'll be opening the phones and the lines at 10. Want to thank everyone who tunes in. Please, if this is your first time, if you're just now tuning in, you like so far, you've watched some old videos, hit subscribe. Help build up the channel for the Ben Dixon Show and the Progressive Army as a whole. Also, check us out on Facebook. Progressive Army is on Facebook. Benjamin Dixon Show is on Facebook. So just want to give a few highlights, current events, just talk a little bit to you guys about just kind of what's been going on. Obviously, pretty much everyone is aware that there was a terrorist attack in Brussels. There's still, of course, tons that we won't even know, but what we do know is that there was at least one suicide bomber. There were 2 explosions in the departure area of the Brussels airport and killed, I believe it was 10 people at 8 a.m. their time, 3 a.m. our time. And then there was another explosion in a subway station in central Brussels that killed about 20 people. And they're estimated, the last I checked, about 230 or so were among the wounded. There's some indication, I guess, that the Islamic State has taken responsibility. The attack, I guess, has an interesting timing. It's just a few days after the arrest of one of the main people involved in the Paris attacks from last year. So, of course, the story is ongoing, and when I was talking with my dad about it earlier this evening, he was asking me, were we going to talk about it all night? He was cracking a joke. My dad has off humor. But, I think it's definitely important to acknowledge when these events happen, and we talk about the facts as we know them. But I saw a really interesting post that we need to take our cue from the people of Brussels, how they're responding, reacting. When things like this happen, we get so immediately angry, we're ready to go take action and do something. But I saw a picture of people, I think it was chalk maybe, just people coming together in a square area in Brussels, drawing, just that outpouring of coming together in love and support. And no, I'm not naive to think that you can, peace and love and it'll make the terrorists go away. But at the same time, we really need to be smart about how we respond, about the things that we say, the way we react. Obviously, there are those on the right who come out with outlandish statements like we need to patrol Muslim neighborhoods and excessive things like that. And one thing to keep in mind is that while we have national attention when attacks like this happen, whether it's in Brussels or Paris, you know, if it's you know, someplace in London, when it's something, you know, of European origin to some extent, we have all this media coverage, right? I'm not saying that other things do not get coverage, but they do not get the same attention nor international outpour. You know, when we have a bombing in Kenya or Nigeria, or we have some issue that happens in Southeast Asia or Central America, we don't necessarily have the same, oh my God, we all have to act. So we need to like really keep in mind, you know, the value we're placing on life when we're choosing to be more concerned about some events versus others. The other thing I think that we need to keep in mind when we're, you know, making these generalizations about all Muslims or all Arabs do this is that we're looking at, you know, Islamic State, when we're looking at ISIS in particular, most of their victims, overwhelming majority of their victims, are people who would identify as Muslim or Arab. And this is something that I don't think, you know, the very repressive ways of going about, you know, exerting influence in the Western world. And I just think that we need to really have a good handle on world events. We need to have a good handle on the things that kind of trigger and lead to these. I mean, you know, there is a global political climate that these incidences happen within, right? So we need to not just, well, we're going to do whatever it takes and just go over there and blow them all up and everything will be fine. I mean, we've been in this quagmire, you know, of Middle Eastern terrorism more in this more recent phase, you know, since 9/11, so to speak. And while it hasn't, you know, necessarily impacted us here on the U.S. soil since then, it has definitely had its own impact with the rest of the world. So, I mean, this is definitely a time to be calm. I think I just got a comment from Twitter that, you know, people in Belgium, people in Brussels are urging for calmness. You know, people are urging for restraints and taking their time. I mean, I obviously can't speak for everyone, but this is not the time to feed into Islamophobia at all. I mean, that's exactly what they, for whatever reason, that's what these people who do these attacks, that's what they want. They want the West to hate Muslims. They want, because, you know, in their twisted psyche, that will drive people to them and to their cause, and when it's really doing, you know, the opposite. So I really think that we need to just, you know, be easy. Something that's bothered me ever since September 11th is when things like this happen. Obviously, it's important and it needs to be covered, but when it's just wall to wall, like, oh my God, this is everything. You know, as also as everyone knows, President Obama is on a historic trip to Cuba right now, right? It's like huge. It's huge, right? And again, I've been at work all day, so you know, I try to keep up with the news on lunch breaks and stuff like that. But my dad was off and he was filling me in a little bit, and he was just saying, you know, he was watching the president's speech to the Cuban people earlier today on MSNBC, and then they went to a split screen of coverage from what was happening in Brussels. Again, it's not that what happened in Brussels is not important, but it's not that we really know anything like breaking new in that short period of time that it warranted cutting out on the president or you know, kind of minimizing the screen on him. So I really think that, you know, we need more balance in the media across the board on so many different levels. You know, it is equally important for us to hear not only the message that President Obama had to the Cuban people today, but also, you know, other international news. You know, what is the response, you know, to his visit. I thought it was very interesting that, for example, that Raul Castro, you know, President Obama, you know how Americans are, we're right, so, you know, we got it all together. Was talking about some of the issues in terms of, you know, the need for democracy and human rights problems, and you know, President Castro said to him that not providing health care and education is a human rights violation. I thought that was pretty deep. I mean, there are other issues in terms of human rights violations to the United States. You know, we're out there policing the world, and the UN and other groups I mean, from the way that our police handle issues, you know, the different police abuse cases, when we're talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, several, if not almost all the cases that are raised are in direct violation of international human rights laws. But no one ever wants to talk about that. It's whatever other country is doing and how they're not doing X, Y, and Z. So, so I just really think that as we're looking at the news, as we're engaging in dialogue and stuff, that we try to make sure that we're getting it like from a variety of sources. It's great that you tune in to hear me or you tune in to hear Ben or whatever, but make sure that you're seeking out different sources, that you're informing yourself about the issues, because, you know, even though I think I'm great to listen to, and, you know, Ben's awesome listening to Ben, and Niz is extremely knowledgeable as well, you know, we need to come to things with our own, you know, foundation and understanding for issues, and that helps us become more informed, that helps us become more engaged, and that helps us be able to express opinions and build on this work that we're trying to do, right? Because part of, you know, being part of this movement, Progressive Army, part of supporting Senator Sanders is having this humanist view, this desire to do things better than they have been previously before. So that was just kind of my take on just kind of what's been going on. Another interesting article that I saw, they're still sticking kind of international for a little bit before I come back domestic. Another interesting article I saw today, actually from Rosa Clemente. The article, I saw it today, but it's actually from yesterday, was in Bloomberg View. And the article is titled, "As Cuba Rises, Puerto Rico Falls." And it's basically looking at, you know, the difference in the difference in the situations between Cuba and Puerto Rico right now. Both former Spanish colonies. Cuba, however, is an independent country. Puerto Rico, you know, is a territory of the United States. And if you haven't checked out any of Rosa Clemente's posts, work, whatever, definitely look her up on Twitter and on Facebook. She's very awesome and knowledgeable woman to follow. I just feel like I get smarter every time I read something she writes or posts. So, but one of the things that is interesting is just that, like, the article points out that even though Cuba technically is not a democracy, you know, when you look at some of the dynamics between national politics and the way Puerto Rico is, they don't necessarily have a true democracy either. Because although Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, they can vote in the primary, but they don't vote for, so they can vote in the primary, but they don't vote in the general election, right? And there's just, you know, the conversation about, while there's supposedly, you know, this notion of arbitrary detention and brutal dictatorship in Cuba, you know, Puerto Ricans face similar issues that we talk about when we talk about Black Lives Matter, when we talk about police brutality and victimization, whether it's by criminals, law enforcement, whatever the case may be. So there are really similar issues when you look at, you know, the two different countries and their relationship to the United States, even though, you know, Cuba is this authoritative government or whatever. So it especially as we're talking about right now, you know, the Puerto Rican debt crisis is something that is really important and huge going on. It's definitely something to check out or whatever. So that was another interesting, just kind of, I'm like, wow, there's some really interesting analysis going on out there. And like I said, definitely check out Rosa Clemente. So coming kind of local, there was an incident in Austin, Texas. There's an incident in Austin, Texas, where a young man, 17-year-old high school student, I believe the article said he was most likely mentally ill. I don't quote me on that necessarily, because I couldn't pull the article up from my phone in time, but before it died. But I read an article earlier and it was just saying that the cop in that incident, right? Because we're coming off of elections in Cuyahoga County in Cleveland and in Cook County, Chicago, where prosecutors have been basically replaced for failure to take seriously to actually prosecute cases involving police brutality, police killings. So this case in Austin was in the New York Daily News today, I believe. It's either today or yesterday. But this cop was fired by Austin Police Department for failure to adhere to their use of force guidelines. So it's going to be interesting to see how that case plays out, if there is more to it besides the firing. This young man was killed. It turned out from surveillance that they were actually several feet apart. The stories cops telling these instances, it completely fell apart. The young man was actually several feet away from him. He did not have gun residue on his hand, so he did not have the gun, did not try to shoot the gun, any of that stuff. So we see all this activism happening. We see the pressures on, hopefully, that jurisdictions, that local communities will start taking this more seriously versus just whatever. We did our own internal review. So at least this person was fired. We'll see what we'll follow that case and see what happens going forward, if there's anything more to it. Another case that we had mentioned, not related, but another incident we had mentioned was the Florida mom that was accidentally shot by her 4-year-old. I just read this morning that she is actually facing charges for the arising out of that incident. So she's a gun rights activist, and she was accidentally shot by her 4-year-old. So that was kind of a wild story, and I guess more has come out, and they've decided to press charges. And then finally, completely changing topics all the way around, today is World Water Day. It's the UN's World Water Day. And there was an article from NPR that I thought, we've been talking a lot about water more recently because of we've been talking about water more recently, primarily, of course, because of Flint, but there's so many other issues. There's issues in terms of the Newark City Public Schools. There's been an issue in Mississippi. I mean, there's been issues all over the place. We just got an update from Maricopa County that there were 1.9 million. There are 1.9 million registered voters in Maricopa County. There are only 60 polling places, and they're saying that people are waiting up to 4 hours in line to vote. I mean, we usually don't hear about that, waiting in line long like that, as to my knowledge, in a primary. That's like general, election voting waiting time, which even for that's crazy, that you're waiting in line 4 hours to try and vote. I mean, we really need to work on creating a system where it's easier for people to engage. I mean, when you look at some of the pictures from Twitter, there are people, at least the weather seems nice, thankfully. But there are people, I remember in 2004 in Ohio, it was raining. Election day was a rainy day, very muddy, but people were waiting in line in many places outside in the rain for hours to vote. So it's definitely something that we need to be more cognizant of. We need to be more active and involved in our local communities and county level, organizations, to figure out what are ways that we can try and help and address situations like this, so that down the line, we don't have people, because if you're elderly, if you're handicapped, there's supposed to be provisions, but not everyone is trained properly at polling sites to understand that, handicap should probably get, certain preference and things of that nature. So, if you're handicapped, if you're elderly, if you don't even know those opportunities to possibly go in a different line or a different way to vote even exist, right, where they do, you might be discouraged from going to vote because it's 4 hours in line. I mean, just think about how many people are turned away. I mean, that takes passion, right, and determination to stand in line for 4 hours to vote. Also, if you have a job, how are you going to stay in line? Another case for early voting on the flip side. But if you didn't take advantage of early voting, it's for whatever reason, we put things off because we think we'll get to it. This, election day, I'll just go by there and vote, and then you get there. I mean, how many people turn away because it's just too long of a wait? So, so that's just a little aside from what's going on. Also, just anyone tuning in right now, we're not going to start taking calls until 10 o'clock. If you're also just tuning in and you notice that, wait a minute, that's not Ben. Anoa Changa, I'm taking over on Tuesday nights, and I will be hanging out with you for the next few weeks or so. And Ben will be back tomorrow. So shout out to everyone on Spreaker. I'm usually not over there, peeking in and seeing what's going on, but just wanted to quickly say hey to you guys as well. I know I tend to dibble and dabble and hang out in the YouTube chat room, but I'm trying to, I'm running it. I'm in the captain's seat tonight, so I'm trying to pay attention to everything that's going on. So not as active in the chat rooms tonight, but I'm gonna get the hang of it. I promise you guys. So thank you for hanging in there tonight. But back to real quickly, World Water Day. This was a really interesting article in NPR, and it said, "What makes water unsafe? Not the color, taste, or smell." I actually kind of disagree with that from my own personal experience, that water, if smell, color, taste, if that stuff is off, then it's a possibility that your water actually is unsafe or has something wrong with it. But this article in NPR was talking about that many of the factors that actually affect our water is contaminated by things like, microbes or parasites or things that we can't actually see, whether it's whether it's some kind of E. coli, some type of bacterial or parasitic outbreak. The fight for clean water across the is a global issue. We have the issue that we have here in terms of our old pipe systems when you're talking about like a Flint situation, or even situation I've talked about, the West Virginia water crisis before, in Charleston, West Virginia, 300,000 people in a 5-county area without water officially for like 3 weeks, more like 5 months in real life. But, globally, a bigger issue for a lot of people has to do with sanitary issues and contamination from things from chlorella to dysentery, typhoid, polio, things that we don't necessarily have to deal with here in the United States. We have other issues we have to deal with, but it's still like a huge problem globally. And they're actually, according to the article, like the World Health Organization was saying that a lot of the issues in terms of waterborne illness have to actually do with the waste management, particularly human waste, and how we have these dense urban areas where you just have waste everywhere, issues with sanitation and hygiene. I mean, when we talk about, international development and investment in communities, we have very rapidly growing urban areas that do not necessarily have the same infrastructure, or even if they do have the infrastructure, the populations are growing because of issues, whether it's related to, lack of employment, famine, weather issues. I mean, all types of stuff drive, huge urban increases in developed, what we call developing countries, which I don't even know. The terminology changes from when you're in school and learn about this stuff. I don't even know developing countries, even still the emerging country. I'm not even sure what the proper terminology is. I'll have to research that. But it's estimated that a quarter of the world's population actually drinks water that is at least occasionally contaminated with fecal matter. And that ranges from like 14% in Europe to about 52% in Africa. So dealing with water contamination issues, whether we're talking about safe drinking water issues in terms of our piping system, and whether it's chemical releases in our water or minerals and other, naturally occurring elements that should not be in our drinking water, like we were dealing with here in the States. There is, to a lesser extent, stuff about, contamination and waste management, things like that. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the things that Stacey and I've talked about previously is like, you talk about coal ash. Here in the United States, we have issues with contamination. Part of the problem here in Georgia, there is a waste management facility, the coal ash, leached into the soil, and this is another problem. We start talking about environmental issues. We start talking about the disproportionate proximity to whether it's dumps, whether it's toxic waste facilities, manufacturing, industrial, entities, to minority, to communities of color, poor, low-income communities as well. Still no results from Arizona, but we've heard that Phoenix. Sorry to interrupt, because I'm getting stuff starting to come in a little bit. Still no Arizona primary results, but we've heard that Phoenix, Arizona, there is a precinct in Phoenix that has run out of Dem ballots. So while that's good on the one hand, because that means yay, a lot of Dems, a lot of people out voting, that's not good that they've run out of ballots, and how they're going to handle that. We'll be waiting to see. But water is a food security issue. It's an environmental issue. I mean, water is life. I know that sounds, cliche, but bless the maker and his waters. Like it's extremely important, and I wanted to raise that because water has become something that's very important to me. Water law is a real thing. It's a huge, emerging field, and with the Flint issues that going on with the situation, like I said, that I went through in West Virginia, and I mean there continues to be issues with impacted, communities whose water systems are affected, whether it's poor management, such as a Flint issue, or New York City school, how New York City schools has the issue, or if we're talking about, an issue with some type of chemical contamination, or as we're talking about. So kind of shifting a little bit now to the next part of our show. I see Necie came on. Hi, Necie. Oh, wait. Are you muted at the top? There's a little microphone at the top. Are you muted? There's a little microphone at the top. So while we figure out getting Necie unmuted, um, another thing we just saw is that they're saying that out of Arizona, and still some more on Arizona, we had in the 2012 primary, there were 300,000 voters in 200 polling places. And in 2016, there were estimated 800,000 voters in only 60 polling places. That's coming from 12 News. So, yeah, not sure what that's all about, but I'm sure we're going to find out more as the night, as the evening goes on. Hey, oh, she's muted again. So, as we're trying to figure out how to get Necie unmuted, Necie is like awesome. She's like super positive, and I love this Bernie stuff, right? It stresses me, it frustrates me. It's like the most god awful thing sometimes, but then it is the most wonderful, um, you know, conglomeration of like beautiful, strong, fabulous, phenomenal people who come from all walks of life and are really doing this great work to create, sustainable, meaningful change and opportunities for community, investment and advancement. And I'm just really excited if we can figure out. Um, just a second, you guys. Sorry, just trying to figure out. So, okay, so we're getting some. We don't have any news quite yet still, but primary wise, CNN, I know y'all don't lose it. CNN though is reporting that voter turnout has been enormous in all three primary day states. So, hopefully, usually when voter turnout is up, it's good for our guy. So hopefully that holds out to be true tonight. I mean, it's gonna be very interesting to see how things come in, to see how things pan out, because again, we've had this huge push for phone banking this past week since coming out of the last 5 states. We've had this huge grassroots push as well, and everybody really seems to start getting in the aha moment, and that's what we're going to kind of get into. The aha moment has finally seemed to struck a lot of people, like the campaign. Excuse me, the campaign needs to, the campaign needs to, the campaign ought to, Bernie better, Bernie should. This is supposed to be a movement of all of us. So no one person can do it all, can be everywhere. We have to own the process, right? That's part of this being a movement, a revolution versus just, a traditional campaign. Um, so yeah, so it's going to be an interesting conversation as soon as we can get DC off mute. But I think there are some other headlines coming out that we're going to ignore, that aren't very, very, very positive. about Bernie. He's grasping other nonsense like that. But like I said, we're not going to pay attention to them because they're a little ta-ta in the head. But I think we just need to continue to hang in there. And, grassroots, regardless of what happens tonight, there's a huge voter turnout. I see the post all over the place. Like I said, later on the show, my co-admin Yami is going to hop on from Arizona and kind of give me, they've been out there, she said it's hot. They've been out there pounding the pavement and really trying to get some votes there. I know people who've done phone banking who've said they've gotten people who are people who voted early and they voted for Bernie, or there were some undecided people who were leaning Bernie. So I mean, that's really what it takes. We need those direct face-to-face conversations happening. We need more and more of them. In these later states, we got Pennsylvania. There was a really great march happened in Baltimore, and not in some really nice, safe neighborhood. It was actually around Freddie Gray's neighborhood. So that was, I think, that the people, grassroots is really stepping up and starting to do a lot. Necie, are you there?
I'm here. Can you guys hear
Yay!
me?
I can hear
Yay!
you.
We got it. Yay. Okay, cool. I had to switch from my laptop to my iPad. Oh my gosh. Am I still there?
Yes, you're here.
Okay, cool beans.
Oh, there we go. Okay, good. Hey, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine. I've been relegated to my garage because they're sitting here in my politics stuff, so it's okay.
Well, can you please just introduce yourself and just tell the viewers just a little bit about how you kind of came to this grassroots Bernie work, kind of where you're from and
Well, my name is Necie Mosley, on Facebook as Necie Mosley, on Twitter as Necie7. I actually knew about Senator Sanders. I'm from North Charleston, South Carolina, just to give you a little bit of background. But I actually knew about Senator Sanders for probably well over 10 years. And I remember last year, I think he was on the Bill Maher's show. That's where I saw him originally. And I remember my son coming into the room and saying, well, who's that guy? And I was like, he's the person who I wish would run for president. And a year later, he announced, and I was 100% in. What actually caught my attention was his stance on mass incarceration. He had actually been talking about that 10 years ago. Nobody else was brave enough to speak up about the mass incarceration epidemics. So when I saw that, it was like, okay, I'm going to kind of keep an ear out for him. And then saw him on like talking down Alan Greenspan on one of his videos. He's an amazing man. He's an amazing man. And what impresses me the most is that he never changes. He doesn't flip-flop with the wind. He doesn't, his stance is his stance, and you can trust that his stance is his stance. So when he announced, I was all in. And what actually got me into the grassroots was one Sunday morning, I was watching MSNBC. I've learned better since then. But there was a gentleman on that was saying, well, yeah, Bernie Sanders is out there, but bottom line is he doesn't have any support in the Black community, so therefore he's probably not going to even get out of the gate. And I'm like, he's got a good point. So I went on Facebook, started trying to find whatever groups I could find that were Bernie Sanders related, and I found a group called People for Bernie, and I messaged them and I said, hey, listen, there is an issue. His message is not going to reach the Black community unless we start putting something out there. So with the assistance of Jack Rabbit Pollock and Shauna East, they helped me put together the POC for Bernie, which is People of Color for Bernie. They helped me put the page together. And once they put it together for me, they were like, okay, you're off and running, it's yours. And it blew up. And that's how I got the pleasure of meeting a lot of my new Facebook friends, like Stellar Hetherington, who's very, very, very active in the African American
Hi,
Bernie
Stella.
page.
We love Stella. We love Stella.
and she broke off from, well, not broke off because she was still helping with adminning the POC page, but
Mm-hmm.
the POC page, for my vision of it, was exactly what it said, for people of color, whether we were
Right.
African American, Asian American,
Right.
Latin American. It was for all people of color, someplace for us to get together and talk about what we could do in our own communities to help get Bernie's message out.
Mm-hmm.
Then, lo and behold, the campaign came to South Carolina, and they kind of plucked me out of the grassroots arena because I was still doing a lot online. I hadn't actually gotten out into my community and started talking to folks yet. So they kind of plucked me out of my comfort zone, which was just staying behind a computer, and put me out there. And from that day on, I was a community organizer for the Bernie Sanders campaign in South Carolina, knocking on doors, talking to people face to face, learning a lot, to say the very least. And then, of course, February 27th came and left, and now I'm back to the grassroots side. And I must say, I love the grassroots side. Lord, how I missed it. So glad to be back on the grassroots side. Definitely, February 27th was a bit of a shocker and a letdown for us because we worked really hard. I think I had actually gotten started ever since September. And we had been hard charging from September up until February 27th. Literally on February 27th, I was on the side of the road with a Bernie sign, asking folks to please come and vote. But once that was done, and I said, okay, I'll go back to the grassroots side, but I will admit it was hard work. Working for the campaign was extremely hard work. Frustrating a lot of times. I'm going to say probably about 80% of the time it was extremely frustrating. And I'm just happy to be back to the grassroots side so I can do things the way I think they need to be done so that we can still get them elected. So, we're still alive in Charleston. We're still alive in South Carolina. So definitely don't think that because the primary is come and gone, we've stopped. There's no stopping us until we're at that inauguration, shaking hands with all our new friends face to face. So we're in here.
With your experience going from, because for a lot of people, right, it's definitely, we have a comfort zone. Everyone has what they're more used to. Like, how was that, stepping out there, right, and being, not just a cog in the wheel, but like being a part of the actual, campaign and helping to build that presence in North Charleston?
For somebody like me, it was frightening. I'm actually, when I say to you I'm a homebody, I called myself an introvert up until a few months ago. So yeah, knocking on people's doors, people that I did not know, and asking them for their support for him, it was out of my comfort zone. But in the front of my mind was always, keep your eyes on the prize. We got to get this man elected, whatever it takes, by any means necessary. Let's do what we have to do. So it was uncomfortable, but there was a bigger goal in mind, and the goal has always been to help him get elected. Right. We definitely wanted him to do a lot better in South Carolina than he did. We were fairly disappointed because, like I said, the amount of work that we put in this state, you guys would not believe. When I say to you, I know my days because I have a full-time job as well. So I would get off work at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, literally take off my work shoes, put on my sneakers, throw on my Bernie shirt, and get out there and get doors to knock on. So it was a lot. It was a lot of work, but definitely doable if you just keep it in the front of your mind. We got to get him elected. We got to This is a bigger goal. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than the people around me who are frustrating me. It's bigger than the doors getting slammed in my face or looking at people that look like me saying I'm voting for Trump. It's bigger than that, So
really,
yeah, man, I'll never forget that day. Oh my gosh, it was amazing that day. But yeah, I knocked on quite a few Black folks' doors that said they were voting for Trump, and I finally just got to the point where I'm like, well, do you mind telling me why? Right. Most of them couldn't, just because it's Donald and he's strong, but for the most part, that's it. So media plays a lot. Media plays a big role in the way that people perceive things and perceive people.
So, like, from your experience, like looking at that, because like you said, because one of the things that I love about Necie, right? Like Necie she's not someone who is like, oh my God, everything went wrong. She hasn't been like trashing, anyone and all that stuff. And I really like I shared a post of Niecy's on Facebook, like I think probably the day or 2 days after the Charleston primary, and she just was explaining, like, regardless of, even if 95% of everyone was this, or if 95% of everything went wrong, there were volunteers. When you're making these statements and these allegations and stuff, there are volunteers who actually put their everything, and staffers who put their everything into, because I know we've talked before about stuff going on, because I know you guys couldn't really say much on social media when you were actively working with the campaign, but I know you told me that we were doing this. I remember the one weekend when Bernie was there, and I saw Necie has these great selfies that she got from Bernie. But like, you guys were going like nonstop that weekend. Like it was so much going on. What do you think though that for people in the coming states, for people who are really getting involved, whether they're working directly with the campaign or grassroots? I know you've said if you can stay grassroots and collaborate.
Yes.
But what are some like tips or things that you've learned from what you did that you think might be helpful?
Well, the main thing, just like you said, if you're grassroots, if you can, please just stay grassroots. The campaign has perimeters that they have to work within, and things that they have to do. They have certain goals that they have to meet, and that's understandable. That's the campaign side. But as a grassroots person, you're kind of free to be as creative as you want to be. So if holding signs on the side of the road is your thing, you can do that as a grassroots organizer. If you like flyering the parking lots at Walmart, you can do that as a grassroots organizer until the cops come and tell you to get off the property. You can get away with doing more things more independently from the campaign, if at all possible. If and when they come to your state, see if they're willing to collaborate with you. Meaning getting you things like literature, sign-up sheets, those kind of things. But if they're not, man, just go online. There are Google Docs everywhere with sign-up sheets, with I think there was one point where we were doing house parties all over the place. There's all sorts of information out there for you. I will say the grassroots folks all over the country are fabulous about sharing things that have worked for them. So that's good. Even if you're not online, if you know somebody that is online, they can download documents, they can download pamphlets, and they're good. It's all good, accurate information. It's nothing that you're putting out that's not true. All of it is good, accurate information. Go out. One thing that I tell folks now, especially this time of the year, farmers markets, flea markets. Just whatever audience you're trying to reach, go to those places where they're going to be, and just hand out flyers. Or I even said one time we would go into, because a lot of the reason why they brought us on into the campaign was because we knew we had to do outreach to African American communities. And here in North Charleston and in Charleston, there's some areas where, just to be frank with you, white folks wouldn't get the best reception. But at least they would at least talk to us. They wouldn't be afraid to talk to us or let us talk to them. So once you've got a target audience, get the literature that you need to reach that particular audience. There were some neighborhoods that we went to where talking about mass incarceration worked a whole lot better than talking about environmental issues. There were some areas in Charleston where talking about environmental issues would be better than talking about mass incarceration. Just know your audience and try and put your conversation in the light of what you believe will work best for that particular area. I know sometimes if I go up to a house and there's a swing set in the yard or toys in the yard, then I knew this is somebody that may have little kids or maybe a grandparent. So I fashion my spiel, say, hey, did you know that he wants to have family and medical leave, as a part of your right as a citizen in this country, so just depends on where you were. And there were some neighborhoods where it was advantageous to talk about his stance on the war on drugs. And you just kind of knew when you walked into the area, hey, okay, this is probably the right thing to talk about to them. So just kind of tailor your conversations to your audience. If you're lucky enough to maybe get to speak to a neighborhood association or a women's group, or, do the things that are going to be more, talk to them about the things that are going to matter to them. Another thing that I liked was just, that was an idea that Stella gave me, whenever she was telling me about doing like little coffee chats or meeting each other in you know, like a Starbucks, and just have a talk right there and just talk about Bernie. And you know how Stella is. She will keep you on point about Bernie. So make sure the conversation.
If anyone has ever ventured into the African Americans for Bernie chat room, the group, you already know Stella runs a tight ship.
Yes, that's it. So,
and I'm an admin in there. I've had my post deleted when I first. She's messaged me like, "Did you mean to post this?" I mean, but having those focused conversations, like definitely, like you were saying, like, you know, we've said it several times. Know who you're talking to.
Yes.
Understand what the major issue is. Don't assume, oh, everybody's going to care about, you know, this or that. I know one of the things, like my stepmother's parents are in North Carolina, they're in Raleigh, you know, but they're older Black people, and they just had a, you know, they talked to them real simple. Instead of trying to explain what democratic socialism was or wasn't, they just skipped that whole democratic socialism conversation, just went straight to, you know, economics and increased Social Security.
Exactly.
They were sold.
Exactly.
You know,
So they
like
knew they tailored it to the
yeah,
absolutely.
And you definitely need to do that and stuff like that. So I know, like, I don't want to necessarily get into like some of, you know, the different allegations stuff coming up, but I just want to just like going forward, right? Okay, so, you know, there are these different allegations. Everyone's aware by now, mostly, that there are these different allegations about Hillary folks infiltrating on the campaign or sabotaging or whatever. Not to get into that, but like, how do we, because I know you commented on posts, you know, like that yesterday, like advice going forward. Like, okay, yes, there are all these insurmountable or seemingly, you know, huge odds against us, but, you know, moving forward, like, how do we do, like, what do you think that looks like in terms of action and motivation?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, hindsight is 2020. So looking back on some things now, I think I understand better why things were going the way that they were going, because there may have been just a little bit of, let's just tip the scale just a little bit the other direction. But the reason why I haven't just gone on the straight, I'm going to tell you everything that happened there, was just because the campaign is still going on. I don't want anything to harm this campaign. That is the most important thing to me, and it should be to all of us going forward. We can autopsy like the Republicans did. Only difference is we need to do something about our results.
Right. Exactly.
We can do all of that after the fact, but right now we have to stay focused, and the focus has to be on getting him elected. So yeah, it was some funny business, and you know, like I said, hindsight is 2020. Everybody has a heads up nationwide now that this could happen. So if you do see something like that, definitely report it. You should have the information on how to get in contact with the campaign in Vermont. Let them know what's happening. Let them know what your concerns are. If they don't follow up, fine. Keep it moving. Get out there and do what you need to do to get him elected, plain and simple. You know, I'm laser focused. I need this man to be the president. You know,
I need this. Like, y'all don't understand laser focused.
I'm done with college. You know, but I do take care of my dad. So a lot of the things that he's talking about are not really things that are going to benefit me directly, but I just know it's going to make for a better, happier country. And maybe if we're a better, happier country, we can stop killing each other and, you know, doing some of that crazy stuff that we've been doing here as of lately. So,
right.
You know, if they don't listen, or if you don't feel like you've gotten a good response from them, do it yourself, man. Print some flyers. If you have good, accurate information, print your own flyers and get out there and do it yourself. You have neighbors next to you, go knock on their doors. Just introduce yourself and just say, hey, I just want to know if you've heard about, and then get into the spiel. It may not go well all the time, but trust me, for the 10 no's, that one yes will make you jump up and down like you would not believe.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's a big deal.
Especially being in the South, when you meet a Black Birdie person, you get to be like, oh my God.
It's like a family reunion. It's like you like hug from miles away, just running in slow motion, like, hi. You know, that's it. It's the best.
So my last question for you before we bring in Stacey. Hi, Stacey.
Hey, Stacey.
But my last question before we kind of, like, you know, shift a little bit the conversation. What do you think, though, about this notion that he's just building? I mean, obviously, we have the three of us, right? Three black women, in the South supporting Bernie Sanders. Of course, we know more. There are tons of us.
Yeah, there's lots.
It may not be reflected, and it may not have been reflected, last month, beginning of this month, but there are a lot of us out there. But, like, what do you think about this notion that he's just building a white middle-class worker campaign, that he doesn't speak or resonate with us?
That's because we're not listening. I mean, plain and simple. It's just no other way to say it. We're not listening. No, he's not building a white middle class campaign. What he's building is a campaign for America. And so, if you're not getting the message, maybe clean out those ears a little bit. But he's talking to all of us. That's why it mattered so much. That's what got me from behind my computer screen and knocking on people's doors, is because he's talking to all of us. We're all being given the opportunity to have a seat at the table. Nobody has given us the opportunity to truly have a seat at the table. So he's offering it. I'm taking it. So I'm there. So
I love it. Thank you so much, Necie. That's been I just like I had to ask Necie, because she come and talk to us for a little bit tonight, because like I said, there has been the post that everyone seems to be stuck. We talk about being laser focused. Bernie supporters are laser focused. We're not all laser focused on the stuff that helps win elections and primaries, though, right? And I think that Necie has continuously had this really great perspective in terms of, okay, that's great, but this is what we need to keep doing. Stacey is the same way. Stella, is absolutely that way. It's like, is this about Bernie? Because the one thing about with Stella, if it's not about Bernie, or it don't even matter if the post is about income inequality or campaign finance reform. If you don't make it about Bernie, it's getting deleted, and you probably gonna get removed. We're really trying to protect and control space, because we have our online warriors, right, who are doing that work, who are really trying to engage and build that support, but then we have people who've been able to get off the computer and get out in the community and really do that work as well. But either way it goes, we need to make sure that we're informed and we're on target in the task, because I'm sure also in South Carolina, considering the work that was done to repair Hillary's image, bashing her did not necessarily go over well with people. You got to know your audience, folks. We get, I manage several social media pages. We get hit with, you need to post this, or people need to know this about her. Okay, look, I'm trying to tell y'all from experience. While there are those of us who that resonates with, there are a lot of people who just don't go for it. It really does. For whatever reason, it turns them off. They don't want to hear it, and you're going to lose people, and so that's what, as we're moving forward, we really need to get the outreach going. We really need to have the big turnouts. We need to build our squad, so to speak, and the best way to do that is to talk about Bernie, talk about the issues, share the information. We're getting a few. I'm about to kind of go over to Stacey, but we're getting a few primary kind of updates. Still no actual results in yet. Bottom line, everything is just super crowded. They are unprepared once again. And at this point, Bernie Nation, y'all have to be prepared for these caucuses and stuff. You need to make sure that part of whether the campaign has clearly designated people to do this or not, if they have not done so, check for people who have caucuses coming up. Volunteer. Yes, right? I'm not really familiar with the different caucus rules, but I know you guys can volunteer to work them. We had on, during Nevada, we had on one of my admin from Women for Bernie, Helena, you can work the caucus. People were upset on Facebook before I got on tonight because, oh my God, people are handing out Hillary stickers at our caucus site. This is illegal. It's not. It's not the same rules as a primary, and so you got to know the rules of your event, because if you can show up with your shirt and your buttons and stuff on, everybody needs to be doing that, because it's basically you get your people over there, I get my people over here, we see who got the bigger group. That's basically what happens at a caucus. I mean, that's oversimplification, but that's kind of what happens. And so I'm seeing pictures coming in here now from there's an Idaho Falls caucus with Bernie Sanders, his side is crushing the tagline is the other side. That's just one caucus site. So we'll see, what's coming on some more. Arizona, again, the only thing coming out of Arizona right now is still that they were ill prepared. The polling locations were haphazard. They were poorly planned. They were not prepared for They were not prepared for the turnout. Oh, we do have a result from Blaine County, Idaho. Blaine County, Idaho Democratic Caucus, 2-1. Bernie had over 520 votes, and Hillary had 260. So hopefully that continues the trend. Hi, Stacey.
Hi, how are you?
That handsome double that just popped in there is one of our producers, Dalton, who's behind the scenes tonight. Just in case anyone was like, wait a minute, what just happened? Yeah, that's the image. There's an image coming up now on the screen of a caucus site from Idaho Falls. So yeah, it's hopefully, you know, we're very helpful. You know, everyone, bottom line, you know, get the vote out, do what you can, stop posting. Oh, Hillary says, why would we listen to what she says? If she says she's going to lose, what does that mean? I mean, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything what the other side said. Like Necie said, just laser focus. Bernie must win. Laser focus. People, come on. That's it. Stacey.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm great. I love it. We're gonna have to drive up and go hang out with Necie. Road trip.
It is so good to see you, Necie. And
you too.
Y'all did that down there in South Carolina. I know that on the ground, y'all really did that. So,
girl, we worked.
I mean, you said it right there. It's work. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it because anything worth having in life involves a sacrifice. And you know, if people really want to see this, you told them exactly what they need to do. And so I thank you for all that you've done. And, you know, one of the great things about getting involved in these, you meet so many great people out of this. You know, any group that I've gotten into, I mean, I've got people where I can say, oh, I met this one during Occupy, or this one's U.S. Uncut, and they stay in your life. I mean, we're building, you know, Dr. King talks about building the beloved community. This is it. This is what we're doing. So I'm just glad to be here, and this is your show, girl.
Yeah, I mean, it's Ben's show, but he let me take over, so you know he might not get it back. But I'm joking. Don't fire me.
I'm joking. Don't fire me. Every Tuesday. So Ben, get some sleep, get some rest, and I got my cup. Okay.
Stacey, so Stacey and I talk often about kind of how do we move things forward, how do we do things locally, the how-to. Like I have some video of Stacey actually when we doing a meeting up, and I'm not going to post it. Relax. I was going to say I'm not going to post it. Stacey gets mad at me because I take random video and pictures of her when she's talking because she just spits hot fire. Like she just like drops truth bombs and has mad knowledge skills, and it's like, wow, the masses need to hear you talk.
But I'm
not allowed to post the video.
You recorded me. You're just like dangerous with that phone, and I'm like, you got that on tape, and you're like, yeah.
So okay.
I'm trying to be incognito, you know.
But the problem is some of those spontaneous moments sometimes are like the most truthful and most powerful, right? Just want to remind everybody it's now 10:02. So if you want to call in, you want to talk to me, Necie, and Stacey, you just hop on the line and dial in, and we'll be here to answer some questions. But so while we're waiting for, we have a caller. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name, number, where you calling from? Well, not your number.
Oh, Spotty.
What's your name?
Hi,
where
hello.
you calling from?
Hi. How are you?
How are you?
Good. You know, there's a certain amount of data. I do like big data at work. And so this election made something like incredibly clear to me. If you look at the black vote, right, the African American vote, and I want to talk about the black vote, kind of like you would talk about a group. So saying, like the vegan vote or the rich vote or the yuppie vote. You get what I'm saying? Like, so if you just going to divide it into a voting block, it doesn't matter that they were African American. You see what I'm saying? It could be any block.
Right.
The fact that I think most of the states, Hillary won by 70, 80, 90%, and that includes Illinois. She won Illinois by 70% in the African American vote. Once it left the South, that she was still getting these massive majorities, I'd have to say that it's a trend, and so that leads me to three conclusions. One, African Americans in large majorities in other states are following what happened in the South, right? And will that trend hold for New York and California? And number two, is it because African Americans, and of course there's that 30% that isn't voting, right? But when you get a 70%, 80%, 90%, you have to say they're voting in unison. That block is extremely powerful. I never realized before. That is the most important block in the Democratic Party. Now, you can say you've got billionaires, right? And they fund elections. And when they fund an election, they get something in return. Lower taxes, lower regulation, maybe copyright enhancement. But the African American vote, if it's going to be a monolith and vote in unison, no Democratic nominee can get past the southern states without giving something large to the African American vote, which is something I don't know about. That power can rival any kind of lobbyist or corporate money. It is the key to the primary in the Democratic Party. I've never realized before. I thought it was just isolated to Barack Obama because he was the first African-American president. But the fact that Hillary Clinton captured that, and if that continues forward, that is an incredible amount of power. And I hear from so many people that are activists that they say their vote doesn't matter. But their vote matters more than anyone else's. This is something that it's blowing my mind. And if it continues in other states, I wonder why people in Illinois who hate Rahm Emanuel, they hate him, and he's been horrible to the African-American community there, still voted for him 70%. Is it that they want to stay a monolith, right? And like I said, I'm talking about it from a data point, right? So not that they're African-American, I'm just saying rich people over 300,000 vote in one way. Vegans vote in another way, right? I'm just looking at it as a data point. It just so happens that, they're African-American people, but if they're going to vote in 70% majorities, that is a powerful voting bloc, more powerful than anything. I just wanted to throw that out there and see what you had to say about that.
Well, I think I'm gonna answer real quick, then I'm gonna turn it over to Stacey. But I think that with anything, like with data, with statistics and stuff, I mean, you can make the data say whatever you want it to say when you just look at just the raw numbers just by themselves. I mean, but when we look at what's actually happening in this election cycle, you can't take it out of the context, right? You can't take it out of the context where, in terms of like how people get their information. When you have, local news coverage not covering a candidate at all, right? When you have someone that's being outspent in terms of advertisement, and whether this is, I know Stacey and I talk about this, she'll probably touch on this some more. It's also an issue of not the message is the problem, maybe the delivery system, right? Because did you have the difference in like radio advertisements? I mean, you got to know the community that you're trying the voting block, right? So while we say, okay, those who are voting, because that's the other thing, not everyone or not even the same proportion of people are voting. When we take South Carolina, for example, not even the same proportion of people voted in 2016 in South Carolina as they did in 2008. The numbers were down across the board, right? So that's another issue. Why aren't voters voting this time around at all? I mean, but when those are overwhelmingly, there are several different issues. There are reports that the Clinton campaign spent the past 2 years or so building those relationships and stuff because they knew going into this that they would need that voting block, so they had to repair the damage done from 2008. That's a head start type of thing. Now, when you also look at the media blackout component, like when so many people are getting their information from, whether it's the mainstream media or news or certain talking points that are regurgitated by people we supposedly trust to tell the news, but they're not corrected, there's no challenge, there's no pushback. I mean, there's so many different problems. And then on the flip side, we need to, that's more reason why Grassroots needs to really step up and be doing this work and engaging people. Because it's great that Bernie is able to have these huge rallies, and here in Atlanta he's had 2 different rallies of 5,000 people. He had 5,000 people at the Fox, and he has Killer Mike, and he was at Morehouse and had 5,000-6,000 people. That's awesome, but we need to actually be doing outreach actually into communities, and that goes back to what Necie was saying earlier. So while I do think that yes, it's definitely, and then there's another issue that Ben and Stacey, we've all talked about, like yes, there is that voting block and they're voting in certain ways, but what are people, we're not leveraging that power of our vote, because the real truth is, what are Black people getting, right? What are these Black folks getting for supporting Hillary Clinton in large numbers? The comfort of knowing that they're voting for her, because they're not getting anything. They're not getting, maybe there's a promise of some people getting some special positions, but that doesn't do anything when you're talking about a community, individual level. So I feel you on the data point, and I'm about to kick it over to Stacey, but at the same time, data, just numbers themselves, they can tell whatever story we make them tell. Stacey.
When we talk about the data and the Black vote, we have to keep in mind that a lot of people who are looking at the data are keeping it in the context of 2012, okay, and 2008 and 2012. Those were unprecedented numbers, and that's where we saw the Black power rise up. I believe it was 64% of the African American vote, but this kind of falls along to what I like to call the Ronald Reagan mandate thing. Ronald Reagan claims he won by a mandate, but it was a percentage of a percentage of a percentage that voted for him. When you see these numbers touting 80% of the Black vote, this is 80% of those registered voters who actually came out to vote. The data is a bit misleading, because you also have a contingent, and particularly what we're seeing is a reset going back to pre-Obama era numbers. So this is what you're seeing now is the norm. Yes, the Black vote is influential, but it is not as influential in this election than it was in 08 or 12, because we are not voting at those same numbers. I believe the vote dropped off like 30% across the board. So when they throw out, well, she won 80% of the Black vote, you won 80% of a shrinking slice of pie. So, and this is, part of the campaigns, this is, psychological ops. So it's intended to psych you out. And the Black vote is very peculiar in how it operates. It is not monolithic, and we're seeing that now. Clearly there are splits in it, but people, in order to help, you have to understand our mindset and how we think. And the Black community, usually our traditional delivery service, it came out of the civil rights movement. It was the Black church. The Black church is what delivers those votes. And these organizations like the NAACP, the SCLC, those are the mechanisms that traditionally have turned out the vote. Those organizations, their memberships are declining. Black church, not many young people are going to church, and so it is, they are able to command a vote, but it's a shrinking size that's coming out. So it's kind of interesting when we talk about the Black vote, what exactly are we talking about? And don't let the numbers psych you out, because like I said, we're fighting over a particular slice of pie. But it is important, but don't forget, there's another group of the demographics out there that will overshadow the Black vote. So combined together will be a juggernaut, the Latino vote. That's the voting block that people really need to keep their eyes on, and what we're going to see in the South. So the data, it's good to look at the data, but you have to keep it in context of what you're actually looking at. So I want to caution people, and you have to, a lot of people, I have to admit, I get a little irritated when people are like, well, what's going on with the South? Y'all don't understand the South, and I can't tell you enough. We are not called the Dirty South for a reason. There's a good reason we're called that. It is dirty down here, and this is, what you saw in the South was old school, hardball politics. It's nasty. It has nothing to do with the right. It is all about winning. And when you see, Kasim Reed beating his chest, she's going to dominate Georgia, you knew something was in. And so what we saw was the traditional, and the Black vote in the South is the Bible Belt. the church. So what we saw was it doing its thing. And I don't, like Anoa said, I don't think the problem is with the message. The problem is the delivery system. But that's where we come in. Us Bernie supporters, we have to make up that deficit. And that's why getting involved is so important. This is why talking to your communities, no matter what community you rep with, you know, because while we're focusing on the black vote, we're also seeing white male Democrats who are crossing over and voting for Trump.
Yeah.
So, you know, while we're focusing on, well, what's wrong with the black vote? We also have to, there are problems in all communities. We're seeing Latinos who are voting for Trump, although it's small. But, you know, it just goes to show the community that you connect with the most, that's who you need to be talking to. You've got Bernie's message down pat. Go talk to them. But I have to urge people, stop freaking out about the black vote. My brothers and sisters up in the North, I think they're not particularly ingrained in the system as we are here in the South. I'm really hoping to see a different result than what we saw here. But yeah, people need to just calm down about the black vote because y'all stressing us out.
Well, and also remember too, it's a difference, right? Like she may be winning overwhelmingly, but he's winning all young people. So everyone 40, 45 and under, black, white, Asian, it don't matter. He's winning. And another block that we don't talk about are Asian and Pacific Islander, that whole group too. You know, Bernie has done well with that block. You know, Bernie's been doing well with Latinos. Bernie's done well with Arab Americans. I mean, there are all these other groups. So when he gets painted as a white person only candidate in the black vote, I mean, we're overlooking a lot of stuff. And it is interesting, but I really do think that we need to continue to look at how we're engaging, you know, what the message is. Necie, did you want to add in anything?
Anything I want to add on, like you said, the relationship, politics in the South is dirty. She's right. Hillary kept saying for, I don't know, months and months, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to be running. I don't know if I'm going to be running for. She was in South Carolina building relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So as she's saying, I'm not going to be running, she had already spoke with influential pastor. So she had already laid the groundwork. Bernie announced in April, so he was way behind the game. She had already been here, already cultivated a lot of relationships with a lot of different people. But like you said, those are the black church.
Mm-hmm.
I'm unchurched, proudly, very happy to say I'm unchurched. So yeah, I wouldn't have been one of those folks that she would have fact. So here in South Carolina, what we noticed, 50 and above black women, they were squarely in her court. Those of us that were a little bit younger or just had a way to be a little bit more informed, yeah, we weren't buying that. But she had already been here, and she had already been cultivating the relationships before Bernie even announced that he was running. So.
Okay, I but to go back to the caller's point, and so that even with the decline numbers, there is a block that is formidable and does need to be courted. Now what conversely though, so that is a good, so not to kind of like get on like no, so that is a valid recognition and point and stuff, but at the same time there are all these different multifaceted groups. But for us, right, well, even though we keep saying we're not a monolith, we do have this political power when we're together as that voting bloc. Ben and I have talked about the black left and why the black left isn't more engaged in this presidential politics level. People have their different levels, but there is power to be leveraged. We've seen that from Black Lives Matter activists that have pushed both Democratic candidates farther on the issues. We've seen that with activists who support the movement for equality and freedom and justice for Palestinians, right? Like Bernie's speech yesterday was because of activist push and pressure. So I do think that the point that there is a certain block amongst voters, and we're looking at a block of voters and that support, I mean, I think that is valid, but we definitely can't take that out of context of what else has been going on.
Right.
We just got a wild tweet, right, from a staffer member of the African Outreach Team, Teslin. She just said, wow, Utah is allowing online voting until 1 a.m., virtual democracy. I don't know if that's the Dems and the GOP, but there's some online voting going on today. I don't know all the specifics. Hopefully, find out a little bit more details for you guys. But like, that is just like wild. Like the things that are happening tonight. Hopefully, again, it's turning out really good for us. But I want to go to my sister friend from Cali, Yamina. Yamina is in Arizona right now tonight. Yamina has been in Arizona since Friday, canvassing and really putting in that good work on the ground level. If you've ever seen me use the term black burners on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, like that's the brainchild right there. That's her. You can unmute yourself now if you can, and let us know how it's going in Arizona.
Hi.
Hey.
How's everybody doing?
Hello.
Arizona is crazy. Arizona is crazy right now. They've closed, I think, 4 polling places. The lines, I put a post of a picture literally around the corner and down the block.
Oh, wow.
And the results party is actually being delayed because, excuse me, motorcycle. It's being delayed because volunteers are going to the polls right now and begging people to stay in line. The lines are like 4 hours long. And
wow.
Yeah.
So it's still 4 hours even now.
Yeah, it's still 4 hours. And the legal team at HQ are looking into it because people have been turned away. There's been a lot of people that are saying that they've been told that they are registered as independents, but they are on DNC voter rolls. It's kind of crazy here. I was texting for Bernie today, and I got a response from a man. He said in 20 years, he's never not been able to vote, and he was turned away today.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen with this. I'm scared of the convention, even though I'm trying to be a delegate. It's going to be probably the most contested convention in history. And the dirty dealings from, what do I call her? I got a new name for her. Today she's something Sybil. Slippery Sybil. Slippery Sybil, that's what I'm calling her today. Slippery Sybil is doing all kinds of dirt. We were ready. We had volunteers waiting for Bill to pop up at polling places so we could shut that crap down. They changed their game this time, and it's not like overt. They're doing it from the inside. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is earning every lie that she was promised because it's really hectic.
Interesting. So you said they closed 4 polling sites. You said, did they run out of ballot?
I didn't get the details. This was all coming from my hustling on text for Bernie. But yes, the campaign was like, yeah, they're closing them down. People are, and it's interesting because in Maricopa County, where I am, where Phoenix is, you don't have to go to your designated polling place to vote. You can vote at any place in Phoenix, and this is still happening.
Oh, wow.
You know, one of the things about this issue, this is one of the reasons why Arizona was covered under the Voting Rights Act. And, you know, in June of 2013, they struck down a key component of the Voting Rights Act, Section 5. Once they did that, we started seeing states that were previously under that coverage pull things like that. Now, Arizona is an outlier because they've been doing this. I think Arizona is kind of taking voter disenfranchisement and suppression. It's an art form out there. So I'm not really kind of shocked about this, but if you're in Arizona, you're listening to this, if you were in line, the first thing I'm going to tell you is stay your behind in that line. If you can camp overnight on you know, Black Friday to buy something, or, you know, during the Thanksgiving holidays, if you can wait for an iPhone, if you can wait for the new Jordans, you can wait a couple of hours to vote. it shouldn't be that way, but that's what they want you to do. They want you to go home. Provisional ballots, people need to understand that provisional ballots, while they allow you to vote, provisional ballots, and the problem is that there is no uniform policy through the 50 states for provisional ballots. So each state does it different. But basically, provisional ballots allow you to vote. They're usually given, like, if your name is not showing up on the voting rolls, or there's, you know, just a slight problem, you know, something that can be rectified. So it will allow you to vote. But, and I'm speaking of what I know in terms of Georgia, how they operate. Those provisional ballots they are counted last because you have 2 days to prove whatever the problem is. Maybe your address changed, or your name changed, or there's some irregularity. You have to provide proof to the Board of Elections within a certain time frame in order for your vote to be considered valid. Then it has to be counted. By that time, by the time all of those are counted, they've usually called the election for another candidate. And it is very, very problematic. A lot of people don't do the follow-up. If you don't do the follow-up that's needed to make your ballot count, they throw it out. People don't know that. They think they do a provisional ballot and they voted, and they haven't. And so this is one of the methods that are used to actually disenfranchise voters. And so if people are concerned about this, you need to know about the Voting Rights Act. There are 2 bills. There's one in the House, there's one in the Senate. That is just sitting in Congress because it needs a push to get it passed. And so, you know, part of activism is knowing how to connect your issue to what's going legislatively, because chances are there's one existing out there that needs force behind it, or one has to be designed. But, you know, working with lawmakers and those in the legal field, you can help do that. There's also a great resource out there, alice.org. That is like the progressives forum of ALEC. If you don't know about it, get in it, because it's got sample legislation that from a progressive side. But this is just one of the problems that we see every time. And one of the things that can help prevent this, do not wait till election day to check your status. Now, some of these can't be avoided, you know, like they play the whack-a-mole with moving the precincts. We saw that done here on election day. But keeping on top of your information, making sure that your changes are done. I can't tell you how many times we tell people, if you've moved or changed your name, you need to register to vote by this day. And people don't listen, and then they call on election day and say, I can't vote. And it's like, you feel really bad. And there's also a great organization that people need to know. When you go vote, you memorize this number, 1-866-OUR-VOTE, Election Protection. I have volunteered with them almost every election cycle going back to, I believe, 2004. What they do, and they protect and defend the vote 365. And they need these type of reports because this is part of the Lawyers Committee. It's a consortium of legal minds and organizations. They take these reports because the problem is, when there are hearings and stuff, they need examples of this type of thing. We can't, you know, just the GOP will say, well, we're going to bring these laws because of voter fraud, and there are no instances of actual voter fraud. Conversely, when progressive groups or groups on the left go to argue this has happened in this county or in this precinct, the first thing they go is, where's your proof? If people don't report these and give us a database in order to work off of, they're going to bring the same argument that we bring when the GOP or the right wing tries to bring about these laws that suppress the vote. So it's very important to let someone know and to have these documented. Election Protection is one of the best groups that do that. So, you know, but you get used to seeing this, and it's sad that we have this, but I mean, it's just one of the ways where, you know, our voting systems and our voting processes, they are a hot mess.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I mean, but it's really sad, and, you know, but people need to hold the line. You know, getting out there and voting. If you know, look, stop and get some takeout before you go. Do what you have. Bring some lawn chairs. Make it fun. I mean, I waited for in 2008. I waited, and this was early voting. It took me 4.5 hours to vote. I had my smartphone. I had books. And it was like a party atmosphere. I mean, we do it big here in Atlanta. They had barbecue. They were selling T-shirts. I mean, the Obama campaign was like a cottage industry. But I mean, if this really means something to you, don't, you know, saying that I didn't vote because I didn't feel like waiting online. We are not going to have a revolution like that, people.
Mm-hmm.
No, definitely, definitely. Just want to, again, just thank everyone who's hanging in there with us in the chat room tonight. Shout out to everybody over there on Spreaker. Again, if the number of you want to ask a question, you want to talk to me, Necie, Stacey, we got Yamina in Arizona, 857-600-0518. You can also hit us up on Twitter at the BPD Show, or you can hit me up, Miss Nono ESQ, hashtag Progressive Army. So yeah, so we're still waiting to get results in. I mean, again, with the time difference and then all the stuff that's going on, I know, again, you heard Yamina just discuss some of the issues going on in Arizona right now. In Utah, we're hearing they're running out of ballots at some of the caucus sites. I mean, the turnout it seems like they should have just like extra things printed as backup, you know, just to double check. But I just want to clarify that the online, see, I got excited. That Twitter sometimes. I got excited. The online voting is GOP only. So the GOP once again is ahead of us. The GOP is actually offering online voting, but apparently, you know, it has been causing problems and stuff. So yeah, I just want to thank everyone again, everyone who's been coming in and out. Like I said, I know there's a lot going on. And just so thank you again for joining us. You know, I'm Anoa Changa. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show. I'm joined with these fabulous ladies here, putting their perspectives of just, you know, grassroots involvement. And Stacey, we didn't really get to talk about it because we jumped right into, I have another caller. Caller, yeah. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And what's your question?
Oh, are you talking to me?
I am talking to you. Hi.
Hi, this is Stella. I just want to say hi and thank you to all you beautiful people for being who you are and being where you are and doing what you do.
I love you so much. Stella, like seriously, like you guys don't understand. Like I think someone in the chat room just said Bernie people are the greatest. I mean, you know, Stella is like my rock. I got Stacey. Stacey, I can actually go cry on her shoulder and hug her. You know, Necie, I can message. Stella, I can message. You know, Stella is just like, I love you so much. Thank you for calling.
I love you guys back. I am just really, really glad to get to know you guys. I'm glad to see that we're getting as far as we are. And I'm hoping that all the noise that we're hearing tonight is a good sign.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely trying to just stay positive and see. I know I keep getting messages about they're running out of ballots. I mean, they keep running out of ballots places. So hopefully people are staying at the caucus sites. People are staying in line to vote. I know Yamina was just saying over in Arizona that they delayed their watch party to go and make sure people stay in the line at the primary site. So it's wild. I mean, I know it's kind of boring because we're all sitting around waiting, but it just imagining what's happening and just watching the reports.
It's going to be a long night. It's definitely
going to be a long night. And then I got good news family-wise. My young niece, 19 years old, is in line for the Bernie rally in San Diego tonight.
Oh, nice. Yay. Nice.
I'm
Yay.
hoping she will get pictures, and I'm not in the bed by the time she starts posting.
Okay, definitely. That's great. We'll have to get those up if she does. That's great.
Ain't no party like a Bernie party. If someone is
but since Stella's on, so Stella's our taskmaster. Stella's our laser focus. You know, stay on track person. Stella, is there anything that you want to add in terms of, just get out there, engaging and talking with folks, that you want to share with anyone who's out there listening?
No, the only thing I can say is from my personal experience that every little thing we do helps and makes a difference. But I don't think anything has the impact that a face-to-face conversation has.
Exactly.
And I personally like to do it like I tell you, like Tupperware parties. Get some friends over, have some coffee or tea, talk about Bernie, and then task everyone that's there with doing the same thing. And it goes out like ripples, real easy.
And that's really the basic.
Later on, if you want, you can get together and go to the polls together. You can have little poll-going parties, to make sure that it all gets finished up. But we can't talk enough about Bernie to people face-to-face.
That's definitely the truth. I mean, yeah. I mean, I know there's this whole, there's a push for all of us to phone bank, and phone banking, and Necie and Stacey, you guys can talk, I think Yamina's in transit, but I think, you guys can talk a little bit more about that or whatever, but I know there's a big push for phone banking, but that personal connection, actually looking someone in the eyes and talking to them, I mean, it really makes a difference. It's so much easier for people to blow you off when you're on the phone. Don't get me wrong, again, phone banking is very important. It is definitely a necessary tool in this process, but it's really necessary for those of us, particularly grassroots side, to get out there and really make those personal conversations, connections, and reaching people in our communities.
I think that's the difference in those outlying areas where Bernie does very well, where we would think that the people don't have the information available, but there are, enough local people around who know him and who are just literally going around and talking to people.
Right. Well, yeah, we talked about this Saturday night. You were saying that about kind of the more rural areas in Illinois, right? Like it was surprising that he did so well.
Yeah.
I think, it's face-to-face, and there's an article that was in The Nation, I think it was a couple of years ago. I think it was 2012. John Nichols, how Bernie does it. How does Bernie do it? And Bernie he's old school in terms of campaigning. We're talking he's like a barnstorming like Huey, he's going around, spreading his populist message, and he's doing it the old-fashioned way, knocking on doors. And this is the basics of any campaign. Even though we have technology that allows us to reach a lot of people in a lot of different places, there is never a substitute for face-to-face communication. And whether you're organizing on an issue or whether you're doing it on the political side, that's kind of like the backbones of it. There is no substitute to going out and meeting voters, and it also leads to what everyone is learning now who's getting involved with the campaign. What you're actually doing is learning basics of community organizing. There's a little bit more to put into it, but this is the bare bones. And Necie and Stella hit on it, talking face-to-face to people. And how we move forward from that is going to be kind of taking what people are doing right now and expounding on it. And it's not a magical secret. It's just a matter of the will and desire to do this and to build upon what Bernie has started. And that's part of, when we talk about a revolution, yes, it is electing Bernie, but it's also bigger than that, because we also have to give Bernie a support network like we didn't do with President Obama. And we also have to build a progressive movement from the bottom up. So, focusing on Bernie is really good, but we also have to keep an eye on who's coming up, who are we electing, because all of the seats of the House are in play in terms of Congress, and on the state level, you probably have local or state elections that are going to impact you probably more directly than Bernie's election is. Bernie is just part of the whole vision. But there has to be more to support him. Otherwise, we'll see another 4 or 8 years. I'm an optimistic girl, believe it or not, of seeing what happened with President Obama. And we already see he ain't gonna get no love from the Democrats. He ain't getting no love now. So we've got to make sure that we get him in, that he's actually effective.
I agree.
Right. Thank you, Stella.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, gentlemen. I am going to say good night. I'm glad to see you guys having this conversation. I appreciate you. I love you. And let's get them.
Yes, let's get it. We got more to go. Let's just keep going. Yep. Yami, you guys got to the watch party or the returns party?
Yes. I just got here. This is like awesome guerrilla media going on. I'm going to take a step into the party so you can kind of see what's going on in here, and then I'll come out here so that we can finish talking, okay?
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, wow.
What's up, Arizona? What you guys are seeing, if you can see in Yami's screen is there's a watch party, a returns party going on right now in Phoenix with volunteers and staffers. Like I said, a bunch of folks came on down from California, carpooled down, came from nearby states, but Yami's with a group from California that carpooled down over the weekend. Bernie the MD, they have a great hostess, who welcomed them. She said, with I think it was jelly beans spelled out on the counter, Bernie, and cold beer. So I mean, this is just. Yeah. So if you were in a nearby state and you can get to, for example, if you're near Washington State, or if you're near Wisconsin, states coming up soon. If you're not far from New York, look into opportunities. Pennsylvania, many of the big states coming up. If you're able to go to a nearby state, if your primary has already happened or you have a very far off primary and you want to go do something, more now, look and see what's going on. The Bernie Sanders website, like, they have an organized section that has tons of information. They're really trying to. I think that the campaign is hearing us, right, with the campaign, with the complaints, with the feedback about how we need to be utilized beyond phone banking. Again, phone banking definitely important, and like I said, Necie or Stacey, if you guys want to say anything about that, I'll let you. But at the same time, we need to. Grassroots really has to pick up the slack in terms of the face-to-face conversations. It's great that we have these really big rallies and marches, but if you're not actually directly engaging people, you're just a bunch of people walking with signs shouting out stuff. You got to actually engage people. Just because you're holding a sign doesn't mean that I'm going to vote for your guy. Like, why? You got to be ready with your elevator pitch, 30 seconds, your quick sell. Like, why is this the guy? Why do you think this is like who people need to be voting for? But also take just a little bit of time to talk to people and kind of see where they're at. Don't just assume that if you meet a black person that they want to hear about criminal justice reform. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever. There are other things that are important to people too, like education. K-12 education, for example, is very important. Like Necie was saying, it depends upon the environment, who you're talking to, where you're at. And like Stacey was saying, go where you're comfortable. Go where you're comfortable. Do what's comfortable for you. Yes, we got to step out of our comfort zone, but at the same time, if you're like not really comfortable being in certain neighborhoods or in certain communities or engaging with certain folks on certain levels, don't do it. I mean, that's just plain. That's just my thought about it. Or go with someone that you trust. But there are tons of ways to get involved. You can canvas and go travel like Yamina has done. You can do texting for Bernie. You can share on social media. But you can continue to host phone bank parties. Even though I know here in Georgia, even though Georgia has already happened, phone banking parties are still going on. That's still like a huge thing to do. We can still organize debate or town hall watch parties. One of the suggestions we got online was about block party. Like, it's getting warm, right? And I would love to be in New York right now if somebody was throwing a block party, or out in California. Like, I mean, there is so much that we can do. There's tabling. Like, I know Yamina, you guys have been tabling in Fresno, right? at the local community college, like in colleges. So like there's so much activity and engagement, and it's I really feel like us early states, we kind of were like guinea pigs for stuff. Mm-hmm. And now I'm starting to see some of the organizing going on, like California. I'm meeting new people. I'm in Georgia, and I'm meeting so many people from California right now, whether it's LA, Fresno, the Bay Area, Northern California, like wherever. There are all these different groups. There are all these different people. Apparently, LA has a Bernie Sanders volunteer office Facebook group. So there's a volunteer Bernie Sanders group in LA, and they're also in South LA, and they have their own physical space, and they have their own thing. It's not the official campaign at all, but they're mobilizing and trying to get out there. The people are doing things with art spaces. I mean, there's stuff going on in New York that's very similar. It's amazing what's happening, you know. So the Facebook groups are really good for getting that information about the different groups out there. And there's some really good people doing the organizing within those groups. But we need to make sure we're getting out into the community, because a lot of us are not, even if we're on social media, we're not hooked into these different groups. And those are the people that we really have to be tapping into. We're still waiting to get some actual results in to tell you guys something. We have about 15 minutes left, and again, with the time difference and then all the hijinks, for lack of a better word, that have been going on today, you know, the long lines, the blatant, you know, denying people access. I mean, it's wild, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out the rest of the night. I'm sure Ben will pick this up some more tomorrow. Yeah, I'm sure Ben will pick this up some more tomorrow once there's actually, you know, more information to talk about. You know, I know we haven't actually, so I want to kind of circle back. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, which we didn't actually get to, so Stacey, you can talk about it for a little bit, is just like local action. Like Bernie needs, you know, we're here, we're supporting Bernie Sanders, and it's great, we need to get him elected up here, but we also need, like, you know, multiple levels of progressive action, and multiple levels of progressive army, right? We need folks at the local level, state level, we need people in Congress. You know, there are the Sanders Democrats, there are people who are running for Congress, for the House, for the Senate, who embody, you know, pretty much the same values and platform as Bernie Sanders. But we also have people on the state level. We have opportunities to build movements and get involved in issues at the local levels. I wanted Stacey to come on, just talk a little bit about, like, kind of like what that type of activism looks like, you know, at the local level, and how do you, you know, as the everyday average person, really start getting involved.
Well, I mean, there's two types of activism. There is issue activism, you know, where you are actually, like, you know, working towards, you know, if climate change is your thing. You know, there's issue-based advocacy, and then there's also political activism. But this is where people start out. Right now, this is a training ground. So before you do anything, you need to decide which space you want to occupy. Whereas there are certain personalities, and if there's someone who really rejects the political system and working inside that, then working in, you know, on the political side, clearly it's not going to be a good fit. If you like to do rallies and you know, kind of events of that nature, you know, protests, then you're more of a direct action person. If you are, you know, but there are many ways that you can fit in there. So you need to find out you need to search inside yourself what it is you want to do. But right now, what you're actually doing is organizing, and it's really basic, because what you're doing, we're coming together and we're communicating, we're developing under a unifying vision, Bernie Sanders. It is the same principle that you're going to do if you wish to organize when this campaign winds down, you know, whatever the outcome, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be positive. But, you know, how we move forward, you know, looking at local issues, it's not just local politics, but also local issues, because while this is all going on, like here in Georgia, right now, in 2 days, our legislative session will end. There's been an amazing bunch of things going on under the Gold Dome, and that's what we call our legislative house, that we have not really paid attention to. Now, you find an issue, well, how do I get involved? There are nonprofit groups that are out there that are dedicated to that. The nonprofits, one thing about working under the umbrella of nonprofits is that because of their tax status, they have to be nonpartisan. So it's a little different, and it takes a certain, well, all of this takes discipline. That's a component that, we all have to incorporate in what we do. You have to have a vision. You have to have a strategy. You have to have a direction that you want to go into. You have to know how you're going to get there. And if you've been in corporate, you kind of get an idea, something like a SWOT analysis, but you have to figure out where it is you want to go and how you're going to get there. So, one of the things that Stella and also Necie brought up was about, just getting together and talking. That's that first step. Communication is key. If you have a couple of people in your community who right now is Bernie, that's your connection. You need to communicate. Communicate, build a relationship, find out the issues that you're all concerned about. Sit there and make it a part of the meeting. What is it that you're concerned about? Telling your personal stories. Any organizer will tell you that is one of the wonderful ways. Your personal story is the best way to connect, whether if you are out there doing canvassing or whether you are talking with an elected official. Your personal story, how it connects to how, like, Bernie's campaign connects to you, that gives you the ability to be the most effective, powerful messenger for his message. So by sitting down, a lot of it is just people, take a pause and we're like, I got to do something today. You have to do something, but you have to do it right. And sometimes you just have to just pause, just chill. Just chill. Think about what you want to do. But building moving forward, that's a question I get asked a lot. And it's really not that hard. But what you have to do is, it's like having a group of friends. If you don't talk on the phone or you don't see anybody, and you kind of fall out of it. And I'm not discounting, electronic activism, but it all plays a role. And the problem is that electronic activism, as we've seen it hasn't been very organized. There are some groups that are stronger than others, but we need to all be on the same page in terms of messaging. Take the lead from the campaign. If they're messaging about a particular thing, all the Facebook groups, we should be blowing up on that particular thing, countering the messages. If we see something going on in the news media, in the news cycle, like, for instance, yesterday with the AIPAC speeches, we should have been, tweeting and posting all of the, Bernie's speech, which got blacked out. We have to fill those gaps. And that's one way where electronic activism really works. The Facebook groups are really great for connecting. But once you connect, you have to have some sort of structure in order to organize your people and to get them ways to plug in. You have to identify, you have to kind of talk with people who come in, what brought you here? What are the things you like to do? And you have to be sort of intuitive to figure out what it is. We have to stop trying to jam, square pegs in the round holes. If somebody's really good at research or in data, you don't want them out there wilding out. If they're an introvert, you don't want them in an extroverted activity. So you kind of have to know the ways that to the different components and to plug them in the right ones so that people will come back and stay engaged. They will always come. The first time they come for the candidate. The second time they come because of you. And so when people come to the meeting, they're hyped about it. They're hyped about the candidate. But they're going to keep coming back if they have a good experience. And they are not going to have a good experience if everybody's sitting around bitching and moaning, what are we going to do? All is lost. Oh. No, you have to keep it. You have to inspire. You have to uplift. And that can be very, very difficult, especially with everything that's going on. But, it's really all in the scheme of things. There are 96 ways of doing direct action. 196. we are not limited to just marches and protests. There are plenty of ways that we can create action, and some of them are in different levels. No, you don't always have to go out and get locked up. I'm not trying to get locked up. Jail is not a place I really want to be. Okay? But there are ways to make change, either through policy or by working with advocacy groups on a particular issue. But that only goes so far, because I need for people to understand there is a legislative solution for everything. Even the civil rights movement was centered around a piece of legislation. Mm-hmm. So, you know, while you're doing this, and the problem is that we've kind of got to get coordinated. You know, I think it was Will Rogers. I'm not part of any organized party. I'm a Democrat. Unfortunately, Will was right. You know, we have to kind of get it together. But there are, you know, a lot of signs of hope that are coming through. But the first thing you want to do is get your team together, start communicating, build those lists. What is more valuable than money? Email contacts. Oh my God. That is your money. That is your list. You guard it with your life. That is one of your main connections. You get those email lists. You stay in contact with people. You let them know what's going on, because that's why they're coming to you. They're looking for something that they can't get. They want information. Everyone thinks we're out here alone. The first thing we say is, oh my God, I'm so glad I found you. I thought I was the only one. You're not. You're just not connected. And by, you know, using, you know, the, you know, media, you know, online media such as this show and other outlets that do it, and also Facebook, it's all part of coming together and creating that beloved community. So y'all are on the first step, and we'll talk about some other things because I know you don't have a lot of time. But this is the first way. You guys are creating change. You just don't know it. But everybody, the first step in your homework is to figure out what it is you want to do. Tell me what it is you want to do. Because if you tell me your skills or your talents or your hobbies, I guarantee you I can tell you something that you can do. The question I have for you is, are you willing to put in the work?
Yeah. That's real. Everybody has homework from Stacey out there. Progressive Army, you know, Spreaker, YouTube chat room. What is it you want to do, and are you willing to put in the work? You're going to have a pop quiz next week. And you can definitely hit all of us up on Twitter. Anything, Yami, just we are down to the last 5 minutes. I mean, this is like flown by. I was so nervous. Thank you to everyone who has joined and chimed in and stuff. I'm sorry for folks who are just now getting to us in the chat room. But, you know, the show's 9 to 11 Eastern time. I mean, thank you so much to our Patreons who make it possible for the 2-hour show block. Like, appreciate you, Ben Dixon, and the rest of the Progressive Army production team. Shout out to Dalton, you know, making it happen tonight for us to be here and have this conversation. You can find me on Twitter at MissNoESQ. You can find us on Facebook, African Americans for Bernie, and Black Burner Coalition. And then I'll just go down the line. Necie, final words, and how can people get a hold of you? If you want to.
I do want to say, this is a shameless plug, I'll say that much, but we do actually have 2 people in South Carolina that have answered Senator Sanders' call to step up. We have one person running against Mark Sanford for his seat.
Nice.
He's definitely a Bernie-crat. His name is Dimitri Tierney. I give him money all the time. And we also have somebody running against Tim Scott for his seat. Another Bernie-crat named Pastor Thomas Dixon. So if you guys, yeah, he's great. These guys are real progressives, not in name only. They are real progressives, have already been on the ground working in our area for years. So please, 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 if you can find, they are on Facebook, Dimitri Tierney for Congress, or for Congress, I believe it is, and then Pastor Thomas Dixon for Senate. And then also Necie7 on Twitter, Necie Mosley on Facebook, and yeah, you can email me too, Necie4466@gmail.com.
Awesome. Stacey.
Well, you can contact me. I'm on Facebook. I'm the terror of Facebook. Stacey Hopkins. I have the black burner flag, you know, the red, black, and green with black burners. I'm on Twitter at Stacey Hopkins, STACEYHOPKINS, Georgia, GA. And if you want to email me, you can email me at S as in Sam, A as in Apple, Hopkins with an S63@gmail.com.
Awesome.
And if you're going to cuss me out, you know, you can do that on Twitter.
Yanita, we still don't have any results for you. Like, this is how crazy tonight is out west. We have nothing for you.
It's West Coast, so it's going to be a long night. I
just got a message a few minutes, like 10 minutes, 20 minutes ago that Tempe polling place was closed, right, at 10 o'clock Eastern time. There were still 565 people in line when the polls closed officially. So it's going to be a long haul. So we're definitely we'll get Twitter handles. I see some comments and questions about folks about the SC Bernie Kratz. We're going to get all that information up. And there's also this really brilliant website that our boy Solomon and his crew has come up with. So we're going to make sure we get all that information out to everyone. Definitely check the Progressive Army Twitter feed or Ben's Twitter feed, and we'll make sure we'll have links to everything. Yami, last words, and how can I get a hold of you?
Okay, you can find me on Black Burner Coalition on Twitter, either Black Burner, no S, won't get into that, or Yami 2 Grace, YAMI, the number 2, Grace as in Amazing Grace. We are on the ground. We are doing things. I just came up with a new canvassing idea. It's a Bernie crawl, like a pub crawl. Go to bars, have a drink, talk to people about Bernie Sanders.
It works. We did it 2 days ago.
We got 10 people to commit to voting for Bernie in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm going to head into the party and see what's happening in there. Thank you for having me. Lovely to connect with all of you powerful black women. It is us who are going to change the world. Come join the revolution, or it's going to be a real revolution. Peace out, y'all.
Guys, I appreciate everyone for hanging in there with us. Tune in again tomorrow. We'll have Ben back, and then Thursday will be Niz. And then you can see me on solo again next Tuesday. You never know what I might have in store for you or who. Ben, you can hit the music. Night.
Good night.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Crazy mother.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.